Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about the Columbian exchange and global trade. This is from your guided reading from section 4.4. So for each section in this guided reading, there's an event or trend that's in the middle column. And then we're going to talk about the causes of that event or trend and also the effects. At times, I will ask you also to take notes in that center column under the event or trend. For example, first thing we're going to talk about is a Columbian exchange. That's number 1. And you should have that definition written there by hand now, if you don't already. The Columbian exchange was the global transfer of plants, animals, and diseases that occurred during the European colonization of the Americas. A lot of things were brought to the Americas that had never been there before, and vice versa to Europe, Asia, and Africa from the Americas. So, what were the causes of the Columbian exchange? First of all, there was a separation of people for centuries. When Asians migrated to the Americas and began living there, their separation from Europe, Asia, and Africa lasted for hundreds and hundreds of years. And so different things developed in different places. So that's a cause of why there would be an exchange of these goods in the first place, because there had been a separation for such a long time. Secondly, another reason for the Columbian exchange is the colonization of the Americas. Once Europeans started traveling to the Americas, started finding these goods, they would bring them back to Europe and they would spread to Asia and Africa, and as well as they would bring goods with them to introduce to the Americas. So what were the effects? First of all, there were a lot of new products, a lot of new goods. Some of them are pictured right there above us. And there are also a lot of new diseases, and that's what that picture in the bottom illustrates. As we've learned many times before, many of the Native Americans died from new diseases they hadn't been encountered, that they hadn't encountered for a long, long time, or ever at all. There was also changes in diet. And so people started eating different things. An example your book gives is how important potatoes were to the Irish diet in subsequent years after they were brought from the Americas to that island. And death. Millions of Native Americans, as we said, died from these diseases they hadn't been exposed to before. The next event or trend we're going to talk about is global trade. So what were the causes of global trade? Well, first of all, establishment of colonial empires. As you can see from this map illustrated here, the European powers began to colonize parts of the Americas, sometimes large parts, sometimes smaller parts. And because of that, they were able to expand their overseas trade. People would leave Europe and go and pick up things from the Americas and then take them back and trade them back in Europe. Now, it's important to distinguish the difference between global trade and the Columbian exchange. The Columbian exchange is goods that are brought over that are introduced into new places. The global trade are the actual things that were traded later on. And a good example of how this is different is corn wasn't a big major thing in global trade, but it was part of the Columbian exchange. So you need to make sure you can tell the difference between those two. And global trade goes along very well with what we talked about before about triangular trade, the trading across the Atlantic of different goods. Finally, another cause for global trade is increased wealth of nations. The countries have more to spend and they want to buy more goods, and so that increases the trade. What are some of the effects? Well, there was a rise in capitalism. Remember, that's another one of your vocab words, and we're going to refer to capitalism as private ownership and also investment of money to make profits as an economic system. Because there's a lot more trading going on, more people are investing in companies, more people are trying to sell those goods that the companies bring back from different parts of the world. Finally, there's a rise in the merchant class. And the merchant class is able to buy and sell products. They become very wealthy and very influential. And also there's a growth in towns. The towns are getting bigger. More people are moving into cities as a result of the rise of capitalism and the rise of the merchant class as well. Another event or trend we're going to talk about is inflation. Now you have to know what inflation is. That is one of your vocabulary words. First, we'll talk about the causes. Inflation is caused by quite a few different things, but in the cases that we're going to study, one of the main causes is an increased money supply. As we said, there was more wealth in nations, particularly in Spain, was carrying over shiploads of gold, and there was more and more money to go around than had ever been before. And also a cause of inflation is an increased demand for goods. When people have more money, they want to buy more things and buy more stuff. So what were the effects of inflation? First of all, there's a scarcity of goods. As more money comes in and a higher demand for goods, the prices go up. That's what inflation is. And but also at the same time, the goods are harder to find because more people are willing to spend money on those goods and buy them. So there's less to go around. And then finally, the main effect of inflation about what it is that there's rising prices. When there's a scarcity of goods, prices go up, and therefore that's what triggers inflation, and that's the main effect of inflation. All right, the next event or trend we're going to talk about is the formation of joint stock companies. Now, you need to know what this is. Please write this down as well. A joint stock company is a business in which investors pool their wealth for a common purpose, then share profits. So what are the causes of formation of joint stock companies? First of all, colonization was expensive. To be able to sponsor ships to go over, pay people to go over to the colonies and invest in a colony there, that costs a lot of money. That was a high cost. Secondly, you would risk all this money by yourself if you were going to invest all alone in colonization. There would be a huge potential for a loss. If the colony didn't turn out well, you would lose a lot of money. So another cause that allowed the formation of joint stock companies was that people wanted to reduce their potential losses. They wanted to be able to not lose so much money since it was so expensive. So what are the effects of the formation of joint stock companies? Well, first of all, there were more and more company-owned colonies, and a great example of that is Jamestown. We talked about how there were investors in London. It wasn't a single person that paid for that colony, but many people joining together to be able to share both the profits, but also share the risks. Okay, and another trend or event we're going to talk about a little bit here is mercantilism. Now, you need to make sure you understand what mercantilism is. First of all, it's an economic policy where nations sought to increase their power by increasing wealth. So in order for them to get more powerful, they need more wealth. How do they do that? Well, to get more wealth, what the idea behind mercantilism is that you as a country want to sell more goods to other countries than you buy from other countries. And that's another one of your, that's a definition of another one of your vocab terms, the favorable balance of trade. Finally, countries would want to obtain large amounts of gold and silver and currency by selling more than they would buy. And they would, by doing that, they'd be able to increase their military might. They would have stronger navies, stronger militaries. So again, the goal of mercantilism is to get more power. You do that by gaining wealth. You gain wealth by selling more goods to other countries than you buy from other countries and having a favorable balance of trade. So what were the causes of mercantilism? Well, first of all, Europeans had a desire for power and wealth and self-sufficiency. They wanted to be able to make things for themselves. They were competing with other European nations for these same things, and so that spurred on mercantilism. What were the effects of mercantilism? Well, people would create colonial empires. In order not to have to buy things from other countries, they would try to be able to grow and make everything by themselves. And again, this relates back to the triangular trade that we're looking at in this picture here, right? If you were a colony and you could get goods from the Americas and sell them, get those goods, get them into Europe and sell them to other European countries, you'd be gaining more wealth. Okay, that's all we have for today. We'll go over these things more tomorrow. Thanks for listening.